Hey everyone, we're going to be working on Save Your Fork today. This is obviously MindTap. These are the files that we're working on. Here is our web page with no CSS applied to it. I'm going to open this in a new tab. So I clicked on this button right here, open a new tab, and that gives me my web page over here. And that just gives me a little bit more room to work. And here we go. This is what the page is going to look like when we're all done. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. If we look at this HTML page, you can see that all of the HTML is given to us, but there's no CSS here. All right, so here we go. Introductions. Got that, did that. Let's get started. So open up SF Tort and SF Effects and enter your name, date, in both of these. I'm going to just copy that. Paste it right there. Good enough. And these are being saved automatically. Go to SF Tort. Within the document, create links to sfbase.css. So I just copied that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do link rel equals style sheet, href equals sfbase. And I'm going to copy this whole line and paste it twice because I also need sf layout and sf effects. Make sure we do it in this order. I come back here now and refresh. All right. Wow. A lot was done, right? If we wanted to look at these things, we could, but all we're interested in is really SF effects, which we're going to be building. So let's validate this. And we're good to go. So what we've learned with MindTap is once you complete a section and you move on to the next section, don't come back and try to revalidate because it screws up your grade big time. So we're moving on now. We're already on step 3. Go to SF Effects. Within the body header section, create a style rule for the body element. So for the body element, drop shadows to the left and right border of the page body with an offset of 10, blur of 50 in that color. So what we want is a box shadow, and we're going to box shadow it with this gray color, an offset of 10 pixels, and a blur of 50. So let's leave it just like this. Okay, I just have this one here. I come back and refresh, and I put that shadow here. Okay, but I have nothing. I have a little, maybe I have a shadow on the other side. Not as much as I want though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this line, copy it. I'm going to put a comma here. And then the next line, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but my offset's going to be minus 10. Right? I'm going to move this over just to get them to line up, just so you can see that these are similar. So this is saying send this to the right 10 pixels, down nothing, blur 50. This is to the left 10 pixels, down nothing, blur 50. And there's a comma after the first one saying apply both of these rules. Now if I come over here, there we go. That's what I was looking for. This way and this way. All right, so that's my box shadow. Navigation, tabs, and list styles. It means create a navigation list with the class name tabs. So if we look, here's top links, navigation class tabs. That appears at the top of the page with the body header. So probably these things. Okay, definitely those things. Recipes, menus, holidays, recipes, menus, holidays. That's that. Create a style rule for the body header nav.tabs. Oh, look, they give us the selector. So just copy paste that. It changes the background of the image to the file sfback1. So I'm going to set the background image to sfback1.ping. Right? This automatically saves. If I come back and refresh, This is what it looks like right now. This is SF back 1, and you see that it like repeated here. So it doesn't really look too good right now, but we're not done. They want this with no tiling. So I'm going to set the background repeat property to no repeat, centered horizontally and vertically. So the background position is center, center. And size to cover the entire navigation list. So background size is cover. All right, so let's take a look at this now. That looks better. All right, looks really nice there. I broke this down into the 4 parts. There's also the background property itself, which can contain all of these elements. And I'm going to see, once I go to validate this in a second, if we can break it out like this or if it requires it to be the shorthand property. So we'll see that in a second. Let's move on here. Amy wants the individual list items in the navigation list to appear as tabs. She wants each of these tabs to be trapezoidal in shape. To create this effect, you'll create another rule for this selector. It transforms the list item by setting the perspective of the 3D space to 50 pixels and rotating it 20 degrees around the x-axis. So I'm going to use the transform. I'm going to use perspective of 50 pixels. And we're rotating that, rotate 20 degrees. So DEG for degrees, that's a new one that we haven't used yet in any of our assignments so far. If I come back and refresh, sure doesn't look right. Oh, rotate X. There we go. So rotate X, if you recall, let's see if I can't really draw on this right now because I'm using my drawing tools recording this. So the X-axis goes this way. And if I say rotate 20 degrees, it's taking this tab and remember, X-axis goes this way. It's pushing the top of it back into the page and the bottom of it comes out, which gives you this effect of a trapezoidal shape. If I take this 20 and change it to like 50 degrees, it pushes it back even further. Okay, so we obviously don't want that. Keep it at 20. As users hover the mouse pointer over the navigation tabs, so let's fix this. As you hover over these things, Amy wants a rollover effect with the tabs appear to come to the front. So create a style rule for the selector that uses the pseudo element hover. So when we're hovering over the LI, which is a descendant of nav tabs, which is a descendant of header, which is a child of body, changes the background color. Background color, where's color? I have to write a little bit more. Background color to color. Copy that. It's lagging a little. Let's make sure we keep this nice and clean. Right. Refresh this. Now as I hover, it will change this like that. Okay. So we can check this. This is the body, header styles. This was our box shadow here. Uh-oh. That failed. Why did that fail? Oh, you got to be kidding me. Okay. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this end comment here. I'm going to cut it. So now all of my images and everything that I did for the navigation tab style are commented out. So now if I check the body header styles, it's good. See, I knew the code was right, but by digging into this a little bit deeper, I could see that, what I have and what they wanted to do were different. So that's how I knew to fix that one bit. Now I'm going to put that back in. I'm not going to retest this because that would be devastating to my grade. And I'm going to check the next bit. And we're good there. Okay. So lesson learned, every time you create or finish a section, we're going to validate our code. Okay. We're learning MindTap as we're learning CSS. Moving into the left section styles. So probably this stuff over here. Referring to the figure in the introduction stuff, notice the left section of the page, Amy has placed 2 vertical navigation lists. She wants these to have rounded borders. For the vertical, create a style rule for this. They're just giving us the selectors. I guess that's okay, but all right, it's a 1 pixel solid border with this color value and has a radius of 25 pixels at each corner. So I'm going to do this bit by bit. I'm not going to use the shorthand. Border width is 1 pixel. Border style is solid. Border color is this color. And border radius is 25 pixels. If I come back and refresh, it looks like this. We got a little bit of an error going on up here, which I know we're going to fix shortly. Let's come back here. The rounded corner also has to apply to the H1 heading within each navigation list. So create a style rule for the H1 elements nested within the left section vertical navigation list. Okay. So I'm going to take this selector, copy it, paste it. I want to apply this to the H1s within that vertical navigation in the left selector. And I also want border radius 25 pixels. Only top left and top right. So I want 25 pixels, 0, 0. This would be top left, top right, bottom right, bottom left. Okay, kind of like the clock that we go with margins and everything, but we start in top left. We start up here. 25, 25, 0, 0. Okay, we did that. Come back and refresh. And we're going to say that looks good. I don't know, maybe a little highlight on there or something. Okay, we finished the left section style. So I'm going to come down here now and say, I've done this. And it's good. All right, so let's make sure that every time we complete a task, we validate it before we move on. And now we're into the center section tiles. So the article contains an image and a brief description. Image, brief description, that's this bit right here. Create a style rule for the section center article selector. It adds the following: a radial gradient with a background of white center to a color stop of 30% transitioning to that gray. So I want my background is going to be a radial gradient, white center with a color stop of 30%, transitioning to 151, 151, 151. So I come back, refresh, white, and then at 30% is transitioned to that gray. 1 pixel solid border. So one pixel border style, solid, border color, this color, and border radius 50 pixels. It's a 1 pixel solid border with the color value and a radius of 50 pixels. That's the next step there. And then finally, a box shadow with horizontal and vertical offsets of 10 pixels. So remember up here we had our box shadow was done up here. So we have our color, horizontal, vertical. Oops, we gotta do 10 pixels because it doesn't know if we're talking 10% or what. 10 pixels, and a blur of 20 pixels. There's our box shadow. Come back and refresh. That was this. All right, so we put a border on this thing. We had a radius of, what was our radius? It's pretty big. Yeah, 50 pixel radius on that. And then we put a box shadow on it. So we dropped it to the right 10 pixels, down 10 pixels, and we blurred it. Okay, so I think center styles is done. So I'm going to say that this is done. Great. That validated, and we can move on to the block quote styles. Oh, that's the end here. Let me just put some blank lines in so I can move this kind of towards the middle of the screen a little bit more. All right, so we have these block quotes here. For every block quote element, create a style rule that does the following. All right, so they kind of give us the selector. It's just, every block quote element. Sets the background image to sf speech.ping with no tiling. So that would be the repeat property. We want it set to no repeat, and a horizontal and vertical size of 100% to cover the entire block quote. So background size is 100%, 100%. And then let's see what that looks like. Come back, refresh. Notice I'm doing this often, right? I make a change, I come back and refresh just to make sure that it's looking good. Because if something wasn't right, let's say I didn't have this in here, we would see that pretty quickly that it wasn't right. All right. And I don't want to go through and just, do this bit and keep going and then try to check everything, because if I screw up, I have a lot to review. So I'm looking at it bit by bit. And then we're going to use drop shadow filter. So this is different than a box shadow. And let me screw this up first. All right. So don't follow me here, but I'm going to take box shadow and put it in here. And 51, 51, 51. The offset is 5 pixels, 5 pixels with a blur of 10. All right, let's see what this looks like. This is wrong. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, so it took this block quote, which is right here, which is a block element, right? You can see the whole block here. And it took that and it added that drop shadow to it. But that is not what we want it to look like. We want to put the shadow just on the visible part of this, this speech bubble. So this is wrong. I'm going to comment it out and just put wrong here. Okay. What we need to do is we need to apply a filter instead. And the filter that we are going to apply is a drop shadow. And I think the order might be the same. Let's take a look. I'm going to come back and refresh. There we go. So big difference, right? Now that shadow is on the part that we see here of the background, not on the entire block element. Okay, so that bit's done. And then last bit, Amy's included a photo of each reviewer. I see the photo there. She wants these images to appear as circles rather than squares. To do this, create a style rule for the site image that sets the border radius to 50%. So 50% will take this image and it'll make the radius half of, these images are square, so half of it is 50%. So it'll turn that border radius for half of it. And if you do that on all 4 corners, good there, refresh, it puts that in a circle. So that's a kind of a neat effect. As long as you have a square image, if you set the border radius to 50%, now you have a circular image. Okay, we failed. Let's see what we need to fix. Okay, so if you look at my page, I'm pretty happy with the filter on this and everything, but MindTap is still saying it's wrong. So recently discovered, I guess, in MindTap is they are using, something to render the page that is not currently up to date. And if you recall, we talked about browser prefixing, where sometimes you need to have that, the browser prefixes of, we can look that up, CSS browser prefixing, the Moz and the WebKit, right? WebKit for Android and Chrome, dash Moz, Internet Explorer is MS. And they're probably, they being MindTap, is probably using what's known as Headless Chrome to render our page and check it. And they might not be using an up-to-date version. So Long story short, what I need to do is I need to take this line, copy it, paste it with minus WebKit minus right after that. All right, so this is the one that we see. This is the one that they are going to test. And now we're passed. Okay, now what they see is what was expected. All right, kind of annoying, but lesson learned yet again that you need to have the WebKit prefixing. All right, last round here. Make sure everything looks good. So it's funny they're saying you can use the W3C HTML validator to validate your HTML. Well, we did no work in HTML. All right, we did all of our work in CSS. So there's also the Jigsaw CSS validator, jigsaw.w3.org/css-validator. And I can put in direct input here. So I can take all my CSS, copy it, come back here, paste it. I just put all my CSS in there and run a check. And there we go. Congratulations, no errors found. All right, so I know my CSS is at least valid. And now when I run this final test, great work. Everything is done. So at this point, you can submit your Save the Fork assignment.